Well, okay. I've been thinking about my options um, and my situation the past week, and I have to ask myself if I'm screwed. Because looking back, um, I started to have real problems personally when my parents separated and divorced when I was like 5 years old. And I went through a lot of turmoil worrying about my father being gone, and um, grammar school was very upsetting. Um, I went to public grammar school, and there were a lot of problems in the school. There were a lot of fights. There were a lot of racism in the school. It was not an organized environment. It was an experimental school. Then I thought that it would be better if I went to private school, and but I ended up in I went to private schools for junior high school and high school, and I ended up with a group of kids who came from families who were much better off than me and my mother. And like I was going to these private schools with scholarships, and all of these other kids were like from upper middle class or upper class families. And there was a lot of bullying that went on. There was a lot of like harsh social um, pressure. And so I had a very tough time in junior high school and high school. And then already after that, it was time for college. And I had already not been interested in doing schoolwork in junior high school and high school because it was so boring and meaningless. But then I had to deal with college, which was like high school all over again. And at the same time, I had been brainwashed by the establishment society into thinking that because of all my problems, I should get therapy. And my mother, instead of sending me to a therapist or a counselor, she sent me to a psychiatrist when I was like 16 or 15. And the psychiatrists start to brainwash you in all sorts of ways also, and indoctrinate you into all of the false psychological and psychiatric and medical um, uh, fallacies which they deal in and which they make money from. So I was going, and then I had like a anxiety attack, and like mini breakdown when I was 17 or 18. And the my psychiatrist therapist sent me to another psychiatrist who doles out medication, and they put me on a small dose of medication. But that started me on the whole further brainwashing about whether I needed to be on medication. And I also saw a lot. I saw a lot of books which which claimed that psychiatry um, was a hoax and like a con. But I was also very influenced by the fact that it was socially, by the establishment, psychiatry was endorsed. So I was incredibly conflicted about what to believe, because I believed in God, I believed in a higher power, but I also believed in reality. So I was totally conflicted about what to believe in terms of my medical treatment. And it turned out later that all of this psychiatry and psychology is it was utter bullshit. And and I proved by by interrogating the doctors and asking them very specific, you know, pointed questions. I proved that they didn't know what they were talking about. I mean, psychiatrists don't know what they're talking about. And if you question them closely, they haven't read all the studies. They are not, um, postgraduate chemists. They don't design the medications. They don't know what's in the medications. They don't read all the studies that back up all the studies that back up the studies of the studies that their treatments are based on. Psychiatrists don't know shit. Doctors don't know anything. Compared to all the knowledge in the world, doctors and scientists and engineers know nothing. Like, so everyone knows nothing, but these doctors are going around claiming they know what they're doing with these very, very powerful medications, but there aren't even any blood tests to determine if you need these medications because all of these so-called medical disorders are simply academic theories, and there's no empirical tests to even prove that you have these disorders at all. It could be just because you're very upset about your present circumstances, which is mostly usually the case, and you're very upset, and it causes you to become temporarily unstable or unbalanced, and they call that, schizophrenia or mental illness. I mean, that's just a natural um, uh, upset because your present circumstances are upset. So they're saying you're mentally ill, and they're saying that that's a anecdotal diagnosis, but they have no empirical blood test or physical test to test if you need a medication or if you even have a real disorder or diagnosis. So psychiatry is utter bullshit. It's just utter bullshit. And that's proven. You can prove that psychiatry and psychology are bullshit because they don't stand up to logical cross questioning. So I became embroiled in the false con um, hoax uh, of psychiatry when I was going to college. And then when I went to college, I was under that pressure and also under the pressure of, falling in love in college for the first time and not really wanting to do the work. So feeling like a failure, but also, um, thinking that I should strike out on my own and start my own business. But from all the past problems I had had growing up, and with a very, very overbearing mother. My mother is extremely overbearing, and she never gave me the space, and she never respected my space, and she never respected my psychological space and my emotional space to be myself. She was always very, very overbearing about having her way psychologically and emotionally. And also, she never gave me what my parents never gave me the things I really needed to grow, to learn, to experiment, to follow my dreams. My mother says she supported me all my life. She gave me everything. She didn't give me everything. She clothed me, she fed me, and she gave me shelter, and she paid for several things, but she never came through in the most important things I really needed, like when I needed to move out to California to pursue my film ambitions when I was in my early 20s. She wouldn't help me at all. She demanded that I get a job and earn my own way. And for some people, that's fine. They can earn their own way. Other people, need the other people get help from their families. Other kids get apartments and support from their families, and that's the way they get help to succeed. I didn't get that kind of help from my mother or my father, and like at the same time, my mother and my father were very, very emotionally hurtful to me. Like my father has just, said that I'm stupid all my life. He's just said, "Oh, you're so stupid," and that's basically all he thinks. And my both my parents are they're completely crazy. I mean, my parents are crazy. They just are not good parents, and they can't be because they're crazy. And you know, so I was taken advantage of, and the psychiatrists were draining my mother of like 50,000 or $80,000 per year, or whatever amount of money, for whatever amount of money they charge, like $500 per week, um uh to so-called treat me, and that which denied us that money to spend on ourselves and our own life. um and now um I've had to run away from New York and run away from my mother, because my mother is so crazy and abusive, and it's so crazy to live with her. Um and at the same time, I developed conflicts with my banks, because from the time that I was an early teenager, I was being discriminated against, and I was encountering unfair treatment by the banks I was dealing with, and that this has escalated all through my life. And then um, I defaulted on several credit cards during the 90s. Or actually, I didn't default, but I ran into trouble with them, and then my family, my mother or my uncle, lent me the money to pay them off, and then my mother paid back my uncle, and my mother paid for my to pay off my credit cards. But then when I got new credit cards, the credit card companies were treating me unfairly, and harassing me. And I started to complain about how they were treating me. They weren't living up to their promises of benefits and advantages and fees about the cards. And then I began to complain to them, and then they ratcheted up their harassment and violations of our contracts. So I fought back against them. So that's another story. But right now, I must have like 25 or so lawsuits against numerous companies. Like when I was traveling through Europe several years ago, I encountered such horrible treatment from hotels, from the German and Austrian railways. I was thrown off of a train in Austria, because they refused to take my credit card because it didn't have a chip. So instead of letting me go to the end of my trip, they wouldn't manually enter my credit card number. They got the police to come onto the train and throw me off the train. So I have lawsuits against Austria and German railways. I have lawsuits against Airbnb and couch surfing, because they discriminated against me when I was being treated unfairly by other members of their service. I bought Bitcoin from coin through Coinbase, for my mom and me, and Coinbase, basically, I needed customer service, and they refused to resolve my issues about login. And I complained about it, and they basically cut me off, and they still have my Bitcoin, and they still have our funds, and they refuse to deal with me or answer my emails at all. So I have a lawsuit against Coinbase. I have lawsuits against all of my former psychiatrists, and in addition, um, every time I get in trouble, instead of being brought into a courtroom to resolve my legal issues, the police just hand me over to doctors and hospitals. And because I have the past history of the past maldiagnosis of a mental disorder, instead of getting a day in court where I can address my legal issues or whatever's happening to me, the police hand me over to the hospital, and they claim that my problem is psychiatric because I have a past maldiagnosis, misdiagnosis of, and that's following me everywhere I go. So I've been hospitalized because I've run into legal problems. I've been hospitalized in several different countries, in Germany, Austria, Greece, Thailand, because they've refused to give me a court hearing about my legal problems, and instead have claimed I have a psychiatric problem because I have a past diagnosis. So I have to sue all these other hospitals and countries and the World Health Organization, because the World Health Organization coordinates this whole psychiatric scam, which victimizes people. And the politicians, like, I was also politically active, criticizing important politicians and embarrassing them. And so the way that politicians can deal with some people like me who are inconvenient for them is to claim that they have a psychiatric disorder, so that they can um, they can get out of confronting them politically and claim that they're just a nutcase. So I have to sue, and then I have to also sue a lot of my credit cards. I have to sue American Express. I have to continue my lawsuit against Capital One, my counterclaim against Capital One. I have to sue Visa, Mastercard, and the credit reporting agencies because of all the fraud and racketeering that they commit on a regular basis. So I have all these lawsuits that I have to fight, because if I don't fight them, then I'm letting them get away with murder, with wasting years of my life and stealing hundreds of thousands of dollars from me, both in payments and also potential income that I lost. So, and I have other lawsuits that I don't even come to my mind right now. But but if I fought these lawsuits, it would probably take like 10 to 15 years to fight the lawsuits through all the appeals and everything. So but I want to live my life. I want to be happy, and I want to live my life and enjoy my life. I don't want to give up all my time to fight lawsuits for 10 to 15 years. Um, so, you know, what the hell should I do? Because, like, they stole money from me and my family for the past 35 years. So I have to get that money back. But I would spend all my time fighting lawsuits. And, like, I don't even have an apartment or a house. Like, I need an apartment or a house that's like 2 or 3 bedrooms or 4 bedrooms, because I need studios for my artwork and for my business projects, all the things I want to do. I don't even have an apartment or a house to do all the things I need to do. So, and my mother is crazy, and my father doesn't give a shit about me at all. So, like, am I screwed? I mean, it's a fair question for me to ask. Am I screwed? Because now I'm in Australia, New Zealand, and I've been applying for government assistance from New Zealand, and I'm probably going to have to do so from Australia, and I'm probably going to have to also apply for government assistance from America and France, which I have citizenship with, and also maybe Israel too, and maybe Germany too, for World War II reparations for all the stress that the Holocaust and the World War II has caused in my psychological life. But how do I apply for all these things and fight all these lawsuits and enjoy my life at the same time? So legitimately, I have a fair right to ask, am I screwed? Because, like, I have all these problems and I don't even want to deal with all these problems. I just want to enjoy my life. So, but if I enjoy my life and I don't take care of these lawsuits in this business, I'm letting them get away with murder, and I'm not making myself whole. So, I'm in a very tough spot, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do, and I'm not sure what's going to happen. And I also have to provide for myself now. Like my mother is sending me money, but she's complaining all the time. So I need money to live also. So, what do I want to do? Get a job as a bus driver? Not really. So, I have a lot of problems and I'm not sure what to do about them. So that's my video for today. Thank you very much.